How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to another installment of Tech Support Thursday. This is going to be ticket 22. That's amazing, we're already on ticket 22. So I've got a number of questions slash comments and things like that that I've gotten from the channel. And so I'm going to go ahead and run through and answer a bunch of them. So, like I said, I go back about a week and answer whatever questions that I see on a weekly basis. It makes it easier than individually replying to them. So, I finally was able to get the remainder of the NSXV videos released. There's a total of 32 of them. So if you are interested, if you have to support NSXV for any reason, that would be a really good place for you to go. Plus, if you're like me and you're studying for the deploy exam for NSX, another area that you're probably going to want to spend some time on. So there's a question, comment left on there, or it's a question. It says, isn't NS6P getting deprecated and replaced with T? Yes, it is. End of support, I believe, is mid-January 2022, so just a couple of months. But just because it's being deprecated, or I should say, the support is going to be no longer there. So you won't be able to call VMware and get support on it unless you pay them a pile of money. Not every customer is ready to move to NSXT. So I suspect it's going to take a while for a lot of clients to eventually move from V to T, however that might look. The bottom line is that it's still out there, and because it's still out there, if you don't know V, you're probably going to want to learn it. So just be aware of that it's out there. But yes, T is the replacing V and stuff like that. So on SD-WAN, welcome to Next Gen Networking. Thank you for the video. I have a question. How is the config for the simulated internet and MPLS? How do you configure any routing protocols so the V edges can reach the controllers and the rest of the V edges? I'm trying to set up my lab, but I'm not sure how the configuration will be. Is the switch port facing the internet in routing mode? I'd have to go look. So let me take a second here and let me look at the playlists. Let me pull up SD-WAN and take a look.
What's going on, everybody?
Let me go ahead and mute it. So yes, and you can tell if you look at the diagram where the connection comes in on the switch. If you look at DC switch on where all the controllers sit, and you look at how that's connected, those interfaces, the IP addressing that's next to the interfaces is the IP address that's assigned to the device. So in other words, that means that the gig 00 and gig 01 are both in routed mode. So yes, it is in routed mode. So you would just apply those IP addresses and you'd be in good shape. On Enterprise 6 port channel, did you have any issues with port channels in EVE-NG? I am doing exactly the same, but it just doesn't work. Each peer telling that there's a suspended LSCP currently not enabled on the remote ports. Tried several different iOS images, both QEMU and IOL. I have never had a problem with it. As long as one thing that you will want to do is I tend to shut down the interfaces before I configure a port channel, and then I set the channel protocol at and I configure them in a range. So it looks like you did too. But you'll want to make sure that the ports are in switch port mode. So make them a layer 2 interface and not a layer 3. And once you've made them a switch port and you say switch port mode trunk or whatever the connection is going to be, then you would say channel protocol is going to be LACP, and you say channel group, whatever the number is, say 1, and then mode active. So then it'll start to actively send LACP hellos across the wire. That should do the trick. If it doesn't do that, then I'm not exactly sure why it's not working, because I have done that plenty of times, and it was I'm using even G in my topology. So hopefully that'll work. On tech support Thursday, ticket 21. Hey Rob, great job. Please, am on the way to prepare my CCNP Enterprise. Am confused for preparation my CCIE. Can you tell me your path you followed? Have you bought only INE video in bootcamp, or there is others instructors out there which is best also to follow them? How many mentor or different instructors do I need to study it? Am living in Africa. In my country, there is not any CCIE expert. I want to be the first. I have the courage to do it, but the way I can follow, I don't know. Help me, please. I see you. You have a big heart. Thanks for everything. So I started with INE. INE helped me get my CCNA, CCNP, and my CCIE. I followed a lot of their training content. At the time, I watched a lot of videos, and pretty much anything that was route switch related. I didn't care how old it was. I watched all of it. If there was content that I could watch to get a better understanding of something, I did it. And I did that for the sole reason of wanting to get a better understanding of how stuff worked. And that was great for me because then it gave me a much deeper understanding. And it wasn't so much knowing what to configure, right? A lot of it was design related, understanding why certain things worked the way that they did. And the Bryans from INE, Brian McGann and Brian Dennis, I've only met Brian McGann. Brian Dennis is, I don't know exactly what he's doing with INE. I think he's just like a silent partner in the background, if I had to guess. But essentially, I watched all of their content. When I passed the written exam in mid-2014, I got into a group of other engineers that were also studying for their CCIEs. And they were using a combination of multiple vendors back when IP Expert still used to be around. IP Expert died away 5 years ago now, 4 years ago, something like that. So I used IP Expert's workbooks. I bought their workbooks for their labs and for their technology workbook, and then went through all of that. Plus, I also did their labs and stuff like that. So their labs were pretty good. Definitely helped me out a lot. So when it comes down to, there's also used Narvik, or what is that? God, I can't remember Narvik's company. I feel horrible now because I followed Narvik for years. Let me do a quick search because I honestly, Narvik Cocharians. Micronics, that's right. I can't believe I forgot that. Micronics training. Micronics is great. I would definitely recommend them. Their labs are really good. Narvik does a really good job of breaking down the technologies. I know a lot of people that took his boot camp back when they were doing boot camps. I think they're still doing boot camps, if I'm not mistaken. Could be wrong. But really good guy. I've never personally met him, but I've talked to him numerous times via email and other chat, and super nice guy. Definitely somebody, if you're looking for somebody that knows networking inside and out, he definitely does. If any of you are watching any of the content that I put out and think that I'm like the end-all be-all when it comes to networking, no. Guys like Narvik are the guys that I look up to that help me get to where I'm at today. So I definitely would say those are going to be the number. INE and Narvik are going to be, or I should say Micronics. Those are going to be the two that I would recommend you jump after. You're going to want to get yourself a lab. Buy yourself a server and install Eve on it and start working with the CML licensing. Download those images and get them working. If you have to use CML, use CML. But you're definitely going to want to start getting hands-on experience with that type of stuff. So there's that piece. CCNP route. Actually, did I finish answering your question? So to follow on with that point, the the thing that I would recommend anyone that has any desire to go after the CCIE is understand the commitment. Um, it is not something that you're going to be able to knock out in a couple of months, right? It's just, how do I want to word that? If you're somebody that's been in the industry for a really long time and you've got a lot of foundational experience, maybe your preparation time will be 6 months and you'll knock it out. But when people have asked me how long it took me to earn my IE, it was, to me, I always use the total time frame that I studied from when I got started to when I earned it. It was 3.5 years. That included me passing CCNA, that got me the CCNP, and 3 attempts at the lab. So, and CCA is not cheap. It's $1,700 per attempt. I don't know if they've raised the price since the new release, but it's a time commitment. So if you're in a relationship, you're going to want to let your significant other know that there's not going to be a lot of you around. I know a lot of ladies that have pursued CCIE and earned it, and a lot of guys have earned it. It's one of those things where you might as well be working 100 miles away when you're studying, because literally all you're going to do is study. So if you're like me and you like having free time and spending time with family and enjoying the perks of being married, there's a lot of things that you're going to want to you're going to you're going to have to sacrifice. So if your significant other is not okay with the idea of you not being around very much, you go to work, you come home, you eat dinner, and then you spend a few minutes with the kids, and then you run upstairs and or wherever your lab happens to be sitting, and you start watching videos. It's not something that I would say you have to put everything into day one. I would say you're going to want to ramp up, because there's preparing for it is one piece, right? Learning the technologies that are going to be tested in the lab is one piece of it. Preparing for the lab to actually go take it and sit for it, that's a whole other ballgame in and of itself. So I'd say the best thing for you to go do is spend the time initially, the first, say, 6 to 12 months, just watching videos, taking notes, understanding the theory, and labbing things up as you go. Keep a simple lab that you can test out a bunch of technologies on and see exactly how they work. Don't spend a ton of time trying to prepare out of the gate for the lab, because the lab is not going to be something that's going to take time for you to ramp up to. Once you've gotten through all of the technologies that are going to be tested and you know them inside and out, like, you need to be Johnny on the spot, like, know how to do everything that could possibly be thrown at you in the lab exam, because you never know what they're going to ask you, right? I didn't know the first couple times that I took the lab. The first time I took the lab, new topologies to me, had never seen them before, and I completely I crapped the bed. I don't like to use foul language on the channel, so I crapped the bed. I think I've solved maybe 2 or 3 tickets. I passed diagnostics, and I did okay in config. Second attempt, I passed all 3 sections, but failed the overall. And then in my third attempt, I was able to pass everything on that. So my first lab attempt and my second lab attempt were similar with the way that the design was set up, but there were still significant differences between the two. My third attempt was identical to my second attempt. So I got the same version of the exam. So I did pretty good there. But the bottom line is there's going to be a learning period of time. The first, say, 6 to 12 months is going to be nothing but learning. Then once you've done all the learning and you've been through all the videos, you've taken all the notes, you've gone through all the workbooks, you've done all the labs, and you've spent enough dwell time marinating in the configs, and you know how to implement everything and all that type of stuff, Once you've gotten to that point, that's when you're going to start transitioning from the learning to trying to pass the lab. And that's where the real time commitment comes into play. You can take your time with the learning piece, right? And I suggest you do. Don't rush that. I didn't. I went over and over the material hundreds of times, took tons of notes, and became very well versed in all how every little feature of the protocols worked and all that type of stuff. But the learning piece probably took me the longest, probably 2.5, if not 3 years. Preparing for the lab was actually more involved than the learning piece, because now you're transitioning. The way I liken it is you're done with college, right? Done with the learning piece, and now you're in the real world trying to take everything you learned and apply it to the job, right? And that's basically how I correlate it, because now you're going to be working at a much higher rate, so meaning that your learning has ramped up. You're probably one of the more knowledgeable people in the networking field across a very large swath of people if you're studying to that level. And you're going to be able to answer a lot of questions. You're going to know how to configure things, stuff like that. You're going to be able to take what you learned and apply it to a bunch of different designs and scenarios. And, you're going to have to leverage what I call out-of-the-box thinking. So, how do you solve this? How do you solve that? Taking what you know and mapping it to those things. There's too many examples for me to list them all. But once you have done all of the learning pieces and you're now in the configuration section where you're spending the time you need to get ready for the exam, to actually sit for the lab, that's going to be the part where it's going to be the most difficult, because now you're in, I like to refer to it as the lion's den. You're as close as you're ever going to be to earning your CCIE without having actually taken it. So that process takes a long time. Don't try to rush that. I did, and it didn't go well for me. I took the lab exam as soon as I could, just because I wanted to see it. Blew $2,500 in a weekend. I would have, although I learned a lot from it, it was probably the most humbling experience I've had as an adult. I walked in there and I got my absolute butt kicked in the lab. It's all right, but I learned from it. I knew I needed to, thought I was ready, but I really wasn't. And I had to circle back and reevaluate. I reevaluated, came back a couple months later. I did a lot better, but I still didn't pass. And that gave me even more motivation. I technically, if I would have done one more thing in the lab exam, if I would have enabled EIGRP on a GRE tunnel, I would have passed on my second attempt, and I would have passed in June of 2015 versus October. But long story short, I didn't pass. Came home with a pass, fail. If you don't know what that means, I passed all 3 sections above their minimum requirements, but I didn't earn enough points overall to pass. I was probably a couple points away. Probably wasn't very far. But bottom line is, I wasn't there. So, and it's a 100-point lab. So you have to earn, the target rate is probably 80%. So you have to earn over 80 points in order to pass. When on my passing attempt, my calculation, I had 88, I think is what I walked away from. I had missed 1 ticket in troubleshooting. I think I got 2 out of 3 tickets. Because each ticket is, it was just 6 points. Because at the time, it was each ticket, you got 3 tickets. Each ticket had 2 point values. One, there was a drag and drop, and there was another one. I forget what it was. So each ticket had 2 points associated to it, and it was split up into it was 2 different parts of the question. So it gave you 6 points. I'm pretty sure I got 4 points out of that. I couldn't guarantee the third question because I wasn't 100% sure if I had the right answer or not. And then in config, I was able to pull out a lot of points. So in total, by the time I walked into config, I was estimating that I had 24 points going in, because you figure 20 points for, no, is it 24? 20 in troubleshooting, 4 or 6. So I missed 4. I missed a 4-point ticket in troubleshooting. and I know I did because my outputs didn't match. So I knew I wasn't going to get points for it. So that's 16, so 20. I walked into config with 20, so I needed to earn 60, and I think there was a total of 76 points, 74 points total. No, that doesn't sound right. You total point 20 and 6 is 26, 74. Yeah, 74 points total. I needed 60, so it didn't give me a lot of wiggle room in order to nail this down, which is the intent. So, but I was able to finally get through it, and I finally was able to crack it. So yeah, you're definitely preparing for the lab is gonna be more difficult than the learning piece, but that's where you really become that expert level engineer, where you have labbed up a whole bunch of different scenarios. On CCNP route 300-101 BGP pass algorithm, can you please share the notes for BGP? Yes, they are. You undergo underneath perks. There is a shared drive, and the notes are shared underneath there. At least they should be. If they're not, I'll add them. Tech support Thursday, ticket 21. I agree with Rob when he talks about having a background in IT before thinking you can move up to networking engineer. How having an understanding of hardware, being able to take devices apart and putting them back together, and understanding the different components is very important. I have the CompTIA Trifecta A+, Network Plus, Security Plus. When I went after the CCNA, and then I went after the CCNA, and now I'm studying for the CCNP. I've worked help desk using ServiceNow ticketing system. Rob's correct. Get a solid foundation. Yeah, I mean, really what it comes down to is if you don't have a solid base for your technical background, then you're going to struggle in IT. Especially if you're coming from another career field. Let's say you were a mechanic for 10 years and you hurt yourself, and now you decided you need a sit-down job. It's going to be probably hard for most mechanics to do most of their work, since it's mainly a sitting or standing man's job. But if you want to get into IT, if you don't have a strong computer background, maybe a computer is just this thingamabob you use to check your internet with and your email and watch YouTube videos on. If you don't use it appropriately, it's not going to do the job you want it to do. So understanding how the network works, understanding computers, those are big deals. I put a post out when I got the new server, and the question is, what are you using this one for? Whatever I decide to. Right now it's running a large Eve lab. I'm probably going to do a nested ESXi host on it to do a nested VMware lab. Some comments on the new Dell RA10 server review. Can you do a video on the new CCNP service writer on training? I don't think the 350-501 SP Core book has been released yet, and would be some good training. What would be some good training material? Honestly, if you really want to learn service provider, I suggest you jump from a video perspective. Go get INE. They've got a lot of SP stuff. I covered CCNA and CCNP service provider for them, and then Brian covered CCIE. So I suggest you go take a look at that. There's a couple of other books. If you're taking, I don't know how far you plan on taking NP service provider. You could buy a couple of other books. A buddy of mine is named Nick Russo. He's got a book out, the CCIE Service Provider Comprehensive Guide. It's a deep dive into all the technologies. You could dive into it and use that as a base. That would be a good start. There's a book that he collaborates with some other authors. Sorry, I don't mean to yawn on y'all in the video. I just for some reason it just hit me. I can't remember the name of the book. But it's, if you go on LeanPub and look up, go to Google LeanPub CCIE service provider, the book will show up. That's what I recommend you guys go read about. Thank you for sharing all these. I felt like double liking the video. Always inspired listening to your experience as a real world engineer. I'm glad you mentioned them in all videos. We look up to you and the great work you're doing for the community. Appreciate that, man. Your face in the thumbnail says everything. Congratulations. I follow you since the previous video where you talk about this server and others. Cheers from Argentina. Wow, this seller is just a few miles from here. This person must live in the area. I bought servers from them before several years ago. This server is definitely a beast in terms of cores and memory. The processors are from 2011. I am curious to see if they support all the modern virtualization hardware features we would want. Looks like you got E running on it. So I assume so. Yes. Yeah, the server supports all the bells and whistles that I needed to do, and it does a great job. Another comment, nice. Let's see here. More comments on their server review. Hello, good for you. If you want to make data centers, you need to take CC&P data center. I would like someone to help me fix my HP ProLiant ML370G5. I do not have any experience with that platform, so I'm not really going to be able to help you. I like your logic focusing on real world rather than just specific track. So do I. Rob, you are a gem in the world of networking. Thank you. Awesome. More comments on the new server. Hello, Rob. Would you please give me your opinion about this processor, AMD Opteron OS 6238 socket G34? Isn't it too old? Is it good for virtualization too? I have no idea. I am not an AMD fan. I've never liked AMD. I've always been an Intel guy. I've used Intel since the dawn of time, so I honestly couldn't answer your question. I could look it up, but I don't know CPUs, right? I say that when I recommend what CPUs you guys should buy for a server, Intel Xeon, and find a cheap one that fits your budget. As long as it's got hardware, Intel VTX and hybrid threading enabled, you're going to be okay. How many Google tabs could that server run? I don't know. It's not what it's really for, but probably a couple thousand, if I had to guess. Let's see here. Great server for a home lab. How do you find the time to do anything else? If by day you are working in the networking field, then in your free time you are building labs, instructional videos. I'm a network engineer for a mining company and do enjoy my job, but when I log off from work each day, I don't even want to think about networking, haha. My lab hasn't even been powered on for a couple years since finishing my CCNP and master's degree in networking because I want to focus on other interests during my free time. I do enjoy watching your videos, by the way. I've been following your channels from the very beginning. Awesome, man. I appreciate that. My response to that is fire the lab back up and get after it. I have other interests too, and I try to do my best to balance them. Actually, this past summer, I wanted a Traeger pellet grill because I've been watching a lot of videos on smoking meat and or smoking in general. Buying a smoker. So I got one for my 19-year anniversary. Anniversary and my wedding anniversary. Father's Day and my wedding anniversary landed in the same weekend. I don't think that happens very often. They're usually pretty close. So because of that, well, my anniversary is June 19th. And then Father's Day is that Sunday, which I think is the 20th. I honestly don't know. But I know they're very, very close to each other. So for Father's Day / my wedding anniversary gift, I was able to buy a smoker. That was my wife's gift to me, and I had already bought her something for the anniversary for that. So that's one of my interests. It gets me out of the office and stuff like that. I've got a couple of guitars that I play. I've been playing the guitar for a long time. I'm not very good at it because I don't put a lot of effort into it. I was better when I was a teenager. I've been playing guitar since I was probably 15, so a little over 20 years. But I am not anybody special. Like, you're not going to catch me doing it in a jam session. I don't put a lot of effort into it. It's more of a, if I'm bored and I want something to do, and there's nobody home, I'll pick it up and I'll strum it out for a little while. I've got a wah-wah pedal as an effect. I've got a little 10-watt amp that I plug into. I jam out. So, got a couple nice ones. I've got an Ibanez Axe. It's a little $200 guitar that it looks kind of like a Gibson SG that Tony Iommi from Black Sabbath would play. And then I have a Paul Reed Smith Santana edition because I like Carlos Santana. I think he's an awesome guitar player. But I also like Paul Reed Smith. So that's what I have. And then probably 20 years ago, let's see, I was 18 when I bought it. So probably a little over 20 years ago, I bought a Washburn 7-string. And because I listened to bands like Korn and things like that. I'm a huge metalhead, hard rock, metal. And that's my jam. So I listen to that kind of music. And I play the guitar because I enjoy it. Sometimes it's a stress reliever for me. But there's that piece. So I enjoy, cooking is something that my wife is usually the one that does the cooking in the house, but I like to be able to smoke meats and things like that, and I've always liked that type of stuff. And you can smoke a lot of stuff. I was actually surprised. An SD-WAN 4 onboarding V edges to the controllers. Hi Rob, great work. What about onboarding the C edges, the CSR 1000V, and Cat 8K? I believe for the CSRs you need you've got to go through some hoops online. There's some YouTube videos out there that are done by it. I never tried it, but I know there's a vEdge list that you have to populate into vManage in order for that to work. How that actually happens, I really don't know. Hi Rob, even though I follow the directions, when I get to adding a vEdge, it doesn't appear in the vManage GUI. Do you need a vEdge list as a prerequisite? No, you don't. I'm using 18.4, so I don't know what version you're running. I think you said you're running on 19.2. And if that's the case, then there might be some other step that I did not do that you need to do. So I honestly have no idea. I have not upgraded my lab to 19.2 or 20. Whatever, 20.3 I think is the latest version that I'm aware of. Could be newer from there, but that's what I'm aware of. Tech Support Thursday 21. Hi Rob, thanks for the great content. I know you will enjoy answering this question. Why BGP is an application, not a protocol? I answered this question via a text-based response, but and I'm actually going to read that off because actually, let me do this view reply. I said technically so is RIP, since it uses UDP 520 for communication. Since BGP doesn't have its own transport mechanism, it relies on TCP connections to other BGP speakers to handle route info and path selection. That's the simple answer anyway. The BPS, or best path selection algorithm, is different from the SPF-like algorithms that EIGRP and OSPF use that just focuses on the link metrics. BGP doesn't care. It looks at the attributes of learned info to make decisions, which is why it can scale so well and be used in the data center, service provider, enterprise, and other large-scale designs. I could keep going, but I think you get my point. And that's exactly it, because it's one of those things where as time goes on, you're going to notice these things. And then some more comments on the server review. What server OS are you running? I installed ESXi 6.7, update 3. Could you add NVMe M.2 SSD to the PCI slot of the server? It doesn't have a M.2 slot in it to add to it. It only has a couple of SCSI attached, serial attached SCSI ports in front of it, so it's got a six hard drive bays. I will catch up with you. My 48 CPUs, 256 gigs RAM, and 300 hard drive. Give me a lab to test my unlimited power. I like it. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is it for Tech Support Thursday Ticket 22. I actually had a lot of fun with this one. A lot of deep dive into different areas. I like to try to answer those questions as succinctly as I can. If you guys have any questions for me, please feel free to reach out and let me know. I'll be happy to try to answer any questions you might have. Until next time, guys, thank you so much for stopping by, and I'll catch all of you in the next video.